This is Right to Life Radio. And now, here's your host, John Gerardi.
We're back with Right to Life Radio, and we've got our good buddy, Mr. Jonathan Keller, the CEO of California Family Council, here in the studio with us. John Gerardi, Executive Director at Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org, if you want to learn more about us. Hey, we've got some stuff coming up. We've got our booth at the Fresno Fair coming up in October. We've got training dates for training our volunteers for all of our different ministries coming up later this September. If you go to rtlcc.org, you can learn more about it, sign up for it, et cetera, et cetera. Good to see you here, Mr. Jonathan.
Great to be back. I'm sorry I was unavailable last week. I just couldn't make our schedules sync up.
But we wound up doing a wacky episode of Right to Life Radio, where basically I just was live reacting to all of the stuff in the most recent presidential debate relating to abortion that Harris and Trump were discussing. And during the debate, they had a lot of talk about late-term abortion, with Kamala Harris seeming to deny that late-term abortions even happen, that abortions in the 7th, 8th, 9th month of pregnancy even happen, which is completely not true. Late-term abortions do, in fact, happen during those times. And they don't happen just for serious medical reasons. They often happen for the precise same kinds of reasons that everybody does abortions at any phase, often for financial reasons or what have you. So we have been presented, Jonathan, by producer Colton, with a mystery clip, clip relating to late-term abortion, and we are going to play this, and we will give my and Jonathan's live reactions to this mystery clip.
It's going to be hard to top the screen grab from our last mystery clip, but this will be good.
Yes, where producer Colton was doing something extremely devious and something with Michelle Obama being brought up. Anyway, let's listen to this. Let us listen to this mystery clip from producer Colton that relates to the late-term abortion issue.
All right, calling the Care Clinic in Bethesda, Maryland.
Thank you for calling Care. How can I help you?
I am looking to have an abortion.
How far along are you?
I'm 34 right now. I am in a pretty desperate situation. My boyfriend is kind of out of the picture now, so I don't really have any support.
An abortion at any stage is actually much safer than delivering a term pregnancy. It's a 4 to 5
hate that
procedure.
rhetoric.
We do some basic lab work on you and start to dilate your cervix. After that, we do what we call the fetal injection. A needle is inserted through the abdomen and into the fetal heart, where lidocaine is injected, and that will completely numb the fetus so there's no pain. And then after that, we inject a medication called digoxin and another medication called KCL into the fetal heart, which will slow and then stop the fetal heartbeat. And then on that.
So this woman is describing on the phone to a prospective patient how a third trimester abortion happens. Notice that the woman on the phone said that she was 34 weeks along. That's what she means.
Which pretty late in pregnancy, John.
Which for a 40-week pregnancy, if I'm doing my math, that is in the third trimester. And they're describing the process of digoxin, which is the chemical. She calls it a medication. It's very euphemistic. The point of digoxin is you inject it directly into the fetus's heart to stop the fetus's heart, to kill the fetus. And then a process takes place to deliver the dead baby. Anyway, let's keep going.
Birthday, depending on how your cervix is dilated, will break your water, and then we'll give you a medication called misoprostol. Misoprostol will sort of induce contraction and increase the dilation of your cervix.
Trying to induce vaginal delivery.
And cramping, and then we'll assist you in sort of pushing in the induction and then remove all of the products of conception. You're definitely going to feel discomfort and cramping and a lot of pressure, but we do give you fentanyl and Versed during the procedure. We specialize
you're delivering a baby. It's just you're artificially trying to induce labor. You're killing the baby first, and then you're delivering a baby. Like this is not, I don't think there's any. This is not rocket science. What's happening here? Like, oh, you're gonna feel some pressure. Yeah, you're gonna deliver a baby. You're 34 weeks along. It's gonna be about as strenuous as delivering a live baby. Anyway, let's keep going.
during the procedure. We specialize in later trimester care. Our doctor is very well versed in what he's doing, and he's very good.
So I'm not like a rare situation. Y'all help women this late in pregnancy all the time?
All the time.
Right, calling the care.
All the time.
All the time.
All the time. Well,
All the time.
That's a relief, John.
So I am wondering what clinic this is, in fact. I think I'm not sure if it's... I may have actually heard of this clinic. So
We
basically...
think it's a Warren Hearn run clinic, you think?
Well, I'm not sure. It's in Bethesda, Maryland. I know that there is the DuPont Clinic, which I know about it because it's in the D.C. area, and they're trying to open up in Beverly Hills, and they have consistently billed themselves as a, quote, all-trimester abortion clinic. But this is good to see, okay? So let's just explain what's going on here, all right? Kamala Harris was trying to say that third trimester abortions don't happen. She was trying to imply during the debate that third trimester abortions aren't even legal, all this stuff. This clinic is not rare.
Right.
All right. Care Clinics Abortion. Okay, so this is based in Nebraska.
But it also
is probably
says
related,
Bethesda.
and they have a Bethesda,
It's
Maryland
either
location.
related to Leroy Carhart or to
Warren Hearn. Isn't Carhart out of Nebraska?
I think he was originally out of
was.
Nebraska, but
Yeah.
I think Leroy Carhart has.
I think he's passed away. So I'm wondering. Well, I'm wondering if he passed away only recently. I wonder if this is affiliated with him.
Yeah, I would
Anyway.
assume that's probably the case.
Yeah, if they've got one location in Nebraska and another in Maryland, that wouldn't necessarily shock me. Anyway, so Harris was sort of rolling her.
Care founder is Leroy Carhart.
Leroy Carhart. Okay, so Leroy Carhart was a famous late term abortion provider, and was one of the parties to two different Supreme Court decisions regarding the practice of what's called partial birth abortion.
Right.
So partial birth abortion is the practice in which basically they deliver a baby, a third trimester baby, deliver the baby almost completely except for the baby's head, and then through a gruesome process kill the baby, collapse its skull, remove its brain. It's a horrible, gruesome thing. George W. Bush signed a law in, I believe it was 2004 or 2003, to outlaw the practice of partial birth abortion. It immediately got challenged in the courts. There were two different Supreme Court cases with the case named Carhart. The first one with Sandra Day O'Connor said, no, Congress has no ability to restrict even partial birth abortion. And then in 2007, where the only thing that had changed was Sam Alito replaced Sandra Day O'Connor, the court said, yes, Congress can pass a law to restrict abortion in this way. Right. So this is one of his clinics, Mr. Carhart, Dr. Carhart. This is one of his clinics. And it's highlighting a couple of things. One is that most states have restrictions on abortion after fetal viability. All right. And third trimester is within the spectrum of fetal viability. So fetal viability basically means the ability of a child to survive being delivered, the ability of a fetus to survive delivery. When is viability? Well, it's kind of varies. It varies depending on, how good your NICU unit is, varies depending on the baby. Also, a baby with more developed lungs is more likely to survive than a baby with less developed lungs. But basically, most states have some kind of restriction for abortion after fetal viability, such as California does, maybe used to. Unclear how Proposition 1 from 2022 impacts this, where basically the state says abortions after fetal viability or within the third trimester are illegal unless the woman's health is threatened. And the problem with that formulation is how do you define health? Health is such an all-encompassing idea, and it has been an all-encompassing idea because of Doe versus Bolton. Doe versus Bolton was the companion case to Roe v. Wade. It was issued on the same day in 1973. and it was a companion to Roe. Roe said, well, states can ban abortion in the third trimester, but they need an exception for when the mother's health is threatened. Doe defined what a mother's health means. And it could mean anything. Basically, the problem was that the definition of health was so capacious that it included essentially any unwanted pregnancy.
Right.
If it impacts your mental health, your psychological health, your familial health, then you could have an abortion.
John, just on that note, I saw someone sharing this. My staff member for California Family Council, Sophia Laurie, was talking about she was sharing a video, and she was just heartbroken because she has an older brother, and then there's her, and then she has twin younger brothers. And someone had posted this in like an IVF support group or something about this mom that says, yeah, I've got a toddler.
Yeah, I saw. I think I saw this thing you're talking about.
Yeah. I have a toddler, and my husband and I wanted to have another baby, so we were trying to get pregnant, and it sounds like they had done IVF. I'm just devastated because when I went in to get checked, I found out that I'm pregnant with twins. And this mom says, I'm not wanting any opinions. I don't want. I've made up my mind. I don't want any advice. I just want to know, can any of you recommend a doctor who specializes in selective reduction?
Yeah.
And she then goes on to say, just knowing, how frazzled my mental health is right now and how difficult things are, I know there's no way that my husband and I could juggle 2 babies.
Yeah, which is like, that's the kind of health
that
we're talking about as a health reason for abortion later on. You'll notice in the recording we were listening to from this clinic in Bethesda, Maryland, founded by Leroy Carhart, late-term abortionist that's doing these third trimester abortions. They don't say anything about health.
Right.
Do you notice that? They don't say anything about health exception, health.
She didn't ask, why do you want the abortion?
Why do you need?
What's
Is there
the cause?
Is there something impacting your health? No, they don't. They don't care. Why? Well, because even if a state has restrictions on abortion after fetal viability, they always will have that health exception. And the lie, mistruth, untruth, whatever it is of basically, abortion is always safer than pregnancy, it is such that for a late-term abortionist like Carhart, that's always a sufficient justification. If you want an abortion, pregnancy is more of a health risk than abortion. So therefore, it qualifies as a health exception. So there's no meaningful restriction effectively anywhere in America that's allowing abortion after viability with a health exception. Essentially, all of these health exceptions are patterned after Doe versus Bolton, or have been interpreted in light of Doe versus Bolton. They provide basically no barrier to an abortionist performing a third trimester abortion whatsoever. So that's the absurdity of, Kamala Harris rolling her eyes at Donald Trump talking about third trimester abortions. Like, yeah, third trimester abortions happen. It is a small percentage of the total number of abortions that take place annually in America, but you're talking about tens of thousands of these procedures happening, and you have whole clinics that operate with yep, that's what we do. Yep, here's the whole process. We have the whole process laid out for you, that this is precisely what you do. You come in, it's a 4-day procedure. It's a known thing. It's a known procedure. And I believe this video, Colton, this video was from Students for Life of America. Was it the one that you shared with us, or from somewhere else? From TikTok? Okay. I think I had seen it before, shared by Students for Life of America. Maybe they just shared it. The woman who's posing as the caller, asking for details about third trimester abortion, again, note that she says she's 34 weeks along. She doesn't say anything about a health problem. She doesn't say anything about risk in the pregnancy. She's asking, you do these all the time? Oh, yeah, we do this all the time. So this is something that is this is something that happens. All right, this is something that is happening again and again throughout the United States. And I think the pro-abortion side just wants you to kind of be blind to it or not acknowledge it, That this is the impact of their, well, abortion should be legal, and maybe there should be, you can have some restrictions late, but there should be exceptions for maternal health. No. If you're going to interpret maternal health that broadly, then you're allowing unlimited abortion for any reason. All right, we'll be back with mine and Jonathan's reactions to the debate. That is next on Right to Life Radio. Back with Right to Life Radio, we're here with our buddy Jonathan Keller. We were reacting to a viral TikTok video showing how readily available third trimester abortions are in various kinds of clinics, how commonly it is done in total opposition to what Kamala Harris was claiming during the debate. And it leads me to bring in our buddy Jonathan Keller from California Family Council. All right, Jonathan, you weren't here last week on the show where we did kind of our breakdown of the presidential debate. Just thought I'd bounce it off you, ask what you think and how you're feeling about between President Trump and Vice President Harris, their sort of what they were saying about abortion, anything you thought was interesting from the debate, sort of.
Yeah, so John, I think that true confession, I did not watch the entire debate start to finish. I wanted to. I actually did want to go watch it, but I was at another event back in Wichita, Kansas. I was there with actually my mom. I was visiting her and my 96-year-old grandma.
I didn't watch the whole thing because I didn't want to. I knew you would have wanted to. I was not wanting to.
I'm normally a political junkie. I did watch the entire first debate with Biden and Trump. And I remember at that point being like, oh my gosh, this is a train wreck. I can't believe this is happening. But yeah, the change was that unfortunately, I think that just on the top level, high level overview, Kamala Harris, I think at minimum, she is better at sticking to memorized talking points than Joe Biden was. And it was very clear to me, at least, she seemed very nervous and very kind of flustered. She seemed to get a little bit more confident as the debate went on because she suddenly realized that I've heard multiple people say that it was not a one-on-one debate, but it was a three-on-one debate.
I think that's definitely true.
I would even say, though, John, unfortunately, my favorite response was that this was actually a four-on-one debate because it was Trump versus the moderators and Kamala and his own dumb self because he couldn't keep his foot out of his mouth and he had to keep following all these rabbit holes. And that was, I think, the frustration was that in the first debate, just being honest here, Trump was not fantastic in the first debate.
I think Biden was such a train wreck, and I think Trump was able to kind of get out of his own way enough that it wound up being a fantastic night for him and a terrible night for Biden. So terrible that Biden got kicked out of the campaign. I did think there were one or two kind of interesting things. One of the interesting things, Jonathan, I don't know if you noticed this. They brought up the question again. President Trump, J.D. Vance said you would veto a federal abortion ban if it landed on your desk. Would you do that? And Trump was super evasive. He was like, well, frankly, J.D. kind of talked about that without talking with me first and blah, blah, blah. And he was sort of saying, look, a federal abortion ban is never going to land on my desk. But he didn't say he would veto it.
True. And I think he probably has heard from, I don't know, Charlie Kirk, Marjorie Dannenfelser, etc.
Well, I think this is the influence of pro-lifers within the campaign. Trump did a lot to kind of sort of alienate people. J.D. Vance's comments about abortion pills being accessible was, pretty bad. The Trump sort of being waffly sounding about the Florida ballot initiative about legalizing abortion in Florida, and then reversing himself the very next day was not super well received. And I think basically Trump's starting to get a little worried that he was so eager to make abortion not as much a kind of anchor or anvil around his neck issue that he sort of wound up pushing pro-lifers too far away. And I wonder if this is him trying to reel things back.
That's my guess.
Yeah. Now, I guess there's a part of me that agrees sort of logistically the odds of Republicans passing any kind of federal abortion limitation would be small, I would say.
Yeah.
But
I don't think, unfortunately, here's the thing, John. I think that there are probably, in terms of a federal abortion limit, we've seen both Lindsey Graham and we've seen Marco Rubio talk about they're not even calling it a abortion ban. They're calling it a minimum standard.
Yeah.
And say, look, we think that 15 weeks is, the minimum standard. And to be clear, this would allow to remain legal about 90% of abortions.
Well, and this is that is the thing. These people said, "Oh, Trump's not going to sign any. He's not going to sign any federal abortion legislation," and it just makes me think. Trump is so hard hammering late-term abortion, how bad it is.
Right.
I'm sorry. Why wouldn't, if Republicans were to win the House and were to win the Senate, and Trump were to be in the White House, if Republicans get a trifecta, why would Republicans not want to introduce a very simple bill that says no third trimester abortions? We ban third trimester abortions nationwide. You don't think it would be a positive thing for them to force every single Democrat to vote on that? To put every single Democrat in a really uncomfortable situation, to either placate Planned Parenthood on the one side or to tick off the 85% of Americans who find third trimester abortions to be vile and horrifying. I mean, that just seems like smart politics to me, in addition to being a good thing to do. And that's why I always liked, you bring up Lindsey Graham's bill. Lindsey Graham had proposed, hey, the case that was decided in Dobbs, the Mississippi law that was at issue in Dobbs, was banning abortion after 15 weeks. And you do public polling, most people are okay with that. Why not try and pass a federal law like that? It doesn't mean trying to pass a federal law to ban all abortion nationwide necessarily. I recognize that that's probably not going to happen, and that's probably fairly unpopular. But move the conversation. I think it's really underappreciated how much the pro-life position excelled in the 2000s, in the mid-2000s. And why? It was because George W. Bush and the Republicans passed the partial birth abortion ban and talked about it and talked about how barbaric it was. Public opinion in favor of the pro-life position was never better than in the mid to late 2000s.
Right.
And it's just gone steadily downhill since, because Americans haven't been forced like they were back then to look at the issue of abortion squarely in the face. All right. When we return, I want to talk about a really stupid article from calmatters.org. The question of an abortion monitoring list that allegedly President Trump and the Project 2025 people want to establish. We'll talk about why it's baloney and why it's actually a good thing to have states report abortion figures. Next on Right to Life Radio. Right to Life Radio, John Gerardi here, Jonathan Keller there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Producer Colton on the ones and twos. The Geeter with the heater.
There you go.
That was the name of a DJ in Philadelphia for some reason. I always thought it was funny, so I just apply that name to all my producers, Colton and Agent Squires. All right. I want to talk about a piece from calmatters.org. Now, Jonathan, you and I are generally fairly favorably inclined toward calmatters.org. I'd say
they're less liberal and crazy than
many.
the LA Times and the Bee and the San Francisco Chronicle.
Not as bad. I think they're a pretty important news outlet covering California politics in a way that very few outlets really are. However, when they stray into social issues, a lot of their writers, other than Dan Walters, who sort of founded Cal Matters and whom I absolutely respect as a political commentator, they go pretty far off base. So I've got this piece from calmatters.org written by Monique Madan. Project 2025 to California. Report abortion data or lose billions in Medicaid. Project 2025, the 900-page conservative playbook for the next Republican president, issues an ultimatum for California. Track and report abortion data to the federal government or risk losing billions in Medicaid funding for reproductive health. Project 2025's proposed federal mandate directly conflicts with the state's strong protections for patient privacy and could dismantle the legal and ethical foundations that have made California a refuge for those seeking reproductive care. No, not reproductive care. It's made California a refuge for people seeking abortion. We do actually a pretty poor job helping people who want to reproduce, like actually have babies that they conceive and want to bring to term. That's why like 25% of women in South Fresno can't get an OBGYN. The blueprint crafted by Donald Trump allies and leaders in his first administration clearly targets states with abortion protections like California, seeking the kind of data that could be used to target abortion seekers or even criminally punish out-of-staters who come to the state for reproductive health services. All right, let's talk about what this is. First of all, our friend Roger Severino was asked for comment on this and declined. So maybe smart on Roger's part to not go along with this hack job. So let me explain what this is. The Centers for Disease Control collects information about abortion from most states in the country. I believe 47 out of the 50. Something like that, Jonathan? Okay.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
All right. I think actually it says in the article.
Yeah, I think it's almost 40 of the states. I'll look this up right here.
Yeah. Okay. So there are very few. Now, the CDC requests all this data regarding abortion. Statistics of who has abortions, how many abortions.
There's 49 reporting areas. Because I think maybe combine like two of the smaller states. 48 reporting areas provided data each year during 2011 to 2020. And I think as a result, it is, I think, the one. Yes. Let's see here. It says the report summarizes data on legal and induced abortions for 2020 that were provided to the CDC voluntarily by central health agencies, which are 47 states. The District of Columbia and New York City, but it excludes California, Maryland, and New Hampshire. Well, Maryland and New Hampshire are both relatively small states, but one of these things is not like the other. When you literally have the most populous state in the nation that does not report.
So let's understand, 47 of the 50 states voluntarily provide information, statistics about abortion to the Centers for Disease Control.
Right.
Including both New York and separately New York City.
Right.
Which last I checked.
Tragic to think that there needs to be a separate reporting because the abortion numbers are so high in New York City.
Exactly. But last I checked, New York and New York City, not exactly pro-life havens.
No.
By any stretch. No. All right. Vermont is providing their abortion figures. Hawaii, all of the most liberal states in the Massachusetts, all of these incredibly liberal states are providing their abortion figures. California is not. This has been a kind of an issue in America for being able to get a real handle on abortion. Like one of the things I know my whole life as a pro-lifer, Jonathan, we've always heard like how many abortions have happened in America since Roe. And that number has kind of crept up, over the course of the decades that I've been, involved in the movement. And I think when I was a kid, I would always hear 40 million and then, 50 million. And nowadays, I think we say about 60 million. And that's probably right. I think it's about 1 million a year. And every decade, it's, roughly another 10 million more. The problem is that those figures are always estimates. And the reason why they're always estimates is California. Like, for the most part, it's because of California. Maryland doesn't report their abortion figures. Yeah, New Hampshire doesn't report their abortion figures. But you got a state of 40 million people, and they just don't. California just does not report its abortion data to the CDC. And California is one of very few states that has this combo. California state taxpayer dollars directly pay for abortion through our state's Medicaid program, Medi-Cal, and we don't report our abortion figures. So we force the taxpayers to pay for abortion, but we don't report how many abortions you're paying for. That's the that's the insanity of California's system. We'll force you to pay for this thing that's highly controversial, and we're not going to tell you how many of these happen. Now, the idea from Project 2025, which let's burst the Project 2025 balloon. Okay.
Yes.
Project 2025 has gotten a lot of flack and coverage in the media that it frankly just does not deserve.
Just most recently, John, I saw this week.
Well, Harris was ranting and raving about it during the debate.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and Billie Eilish, the not as famous as Taylor Swift, but a very popular singer-songwriter among the youths of America.
Yeah.
She and her brother released a video just a couple days ago endorsing Kamala Harris and saying part of the reason for this is because of Project 2025.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of remarkable to me how
it's become
the media has been at branding Project 2025 and
yeah, it's become this larger than life thing. Here's all it is. It's a series of policy proposals written up by people at a think tank in Washington. So the Heritage Foundation is a think tank in Washington, D.C. It's a tank, and people are paid to think in it. Okay,
right.
That's what they do. And the Heritage Foundation functions in a fashion that's comparable to a lot of left-leaning think tanks, where it's often a lot of people who used to work for the Trump administration or who might work again for the Trump administration wind up getting jobs there when the Republican administration is out of power. And they put together a series of policy proposals that they say, hey, these are the kinds of things that we hope a Republican presidential administration pursues. Now, there are former Trump people who worked on it, but it wasn't produced by the Trump campaign. It wasn't signed off on by Donald Trump. It wasn't endorsed by Trump. To the contrary, Trump has kind of thrown it and the people who wrote it, many of which worked for him, completely under the bus. Even like guys like Peter Navarro, who wrote certain parts of Project 2025 and who went to jail rather than testify against Donald Trump, and he's getting thrown under the bus too. So its importance has been massively over-exaggerated. It's a bunch of policies that Heritage Foundation kind of hopes a Republican administration will pursue. It's not the Republican Party platform. It's not the Trump campaign platform. It's just a series of policy proposals. Now, Jonathan and I have been big fans of basically everything Project 2025 had to say about abortion.
yes,
Right? I mean, we completely trust the people who wrote all the stuff relating to abortion. Roger Severino, whom we've gotten to know a little bit, he wrote all the stuff about how basically they broke, it's this big 900-page document, and it's broken up into sections. Basically, each section relates to one division of the executive branch, one department of the executive branch. So This section of it deals with the Department of Health and Human Services. This section of it deals with reforms to be made at the Department of Justice. This at the Department of Defense.
It's a huge document.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 900 pages.
Yeah,
So there's
900
a ton
plus.
of stuff in there.
Yeah. Now, what Project 2025 wanted to do, again, this calmatters.org article says, that California, the privacy interests of patients in California who have abortions, it's going to be used to monitor women in California trying to have abortions or people coming from out of state to have it's used to monitor them. All Project 2025 is saying is, hey, you know that voluntary reporting of abortion data that 47 out of 50 states already do? That gives non-HIPAA violative information about, what age demographics are the people who are having abortions, what income demographics are the people who are having abortions, how many abortions are happening in your jurisdiction. This is all stuff that can be collected and shared without anyone being monitored, without anyone's privacy being violated, without anyone's personal. No. This isn't it's collecting data about what is supposed to be just a normal, basic women's healthcare service.
And it's not, to clarify, John, it's not identifiable data. This is aggregated data. To clarify, because some people might think, well, I thought you guys are conservatives. Don't you oppose the government finding out about what kind of healthcare procedures people are having? It's like, okay, what we're talking about is not identifying data. The government does not know by name, oh yes, all of these individual women had abortions.
Yeah, it's not Mary Lou Smith and Jody Ann Foster.
It is saying in the state of California, there were X number of total births within the state. There were X number of total pregnancies within the state.
Right.
And then there were X number of those pregnancies
that ended in abortion.
By either abortion or by miscarriage or whatever.
And so that's all the proposal is.
Right.
And frankly, it would make perfect sense to collect it. And it's basically saying, hey, this stuff that people are voluntarily giving, let's make it mandatory so that America can have a better understanding of what's going on with the provision of abortion in this country. We'll be back with closing thoughts here on Right to Life Radio right after this. Back with Right to Life Radio, one of the most important pieces of abortion legislation that's being bandied about in the country today is Amendment 4 in Florida. This is a proposed amendment to the Florida Constitution, which will be voted on by the citizens of Florida. If 60% of Florida voters vote to adopt it, it would overturn the excellent law passed by Governor Ron DeSantis just a few years ago, which bans all abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy. Again, to amend the Florida Constitution, you need 60% of the people to vote on it. And it's been really encouraging, I think, to see, Jonathan, that Ron DeSantis is actually taking a big-time leadership role in fighting against Amendment 4.
Yes.
And because basically, if Florida passes this thing, we're facing a really unbelievably tall challenge when it comes to state-level abortion legislation.
Yeah, because essentially what it would say is that any state with the 60%...
Even in a deep red state like Florida is now...
Yeah.
There's no way to pass abortion legislation if you have any kind of popular referendum thing. That the pro-choice side has just won the rhetorical battle.
And I would encourage you, if you want to know why these things are so important, and John, I don't want to trigger all of our diehard MAGA Trump supporting friends, but that are listening, but I will just tell you, Ron DeSantis had a great interview. I heard him interviewed on this podcast called The Bully Pulpit a couple of days ago. He was actually at a church in Tallahassee, Florida, being interviewed by the Southern Baptist pastor there named Dean and Sarah. And I was just sitting here, John, listening to Ron DeSantis answer a question and go into a 8-minute soliloquy about why this is so bad from both a constitutional perspective, from a pro-life perspective. And I thought, one day I would love to have a candidate who can go and make the case for life in a articulate, passionate, cogent manner.
Well, and that's the thing with Trump is while he did a ton of great stuff on the abortion issue in his first term, and we don't want to lose sight of that, clearly abortion is not like the thing that animates him as a politician. It's just not the thing he's interested in. And he in a sense, he almost views it as a distraction. And as such, he's not as great as articulating the specifics of the issues involved in it. And he had kind of a difficult time, I think, in the last debate on that score. So, yeah, and this is part of my ongoing rant, why I kind of prefer lawyers running for the legal job of being the chief executive of a state or a country. At any rate, it's really encouraging to see DeSantis so engaged. I hope they can defeat this in Florida. That'll do it for Right to Life Radio. See you all next time on Power Talk.